I have some major concerns with Occupy Kelowna. This is a very well controlled group that has leaders, hidden leaders, that the group is unaware of. And I have my suspicions of who that could be, because a leader that shows up is a leader that speaks loudly, is allowed to have a very loud voice, but if you speak on the same level of voice as this person tells you to lower their voice so that his voice is much louder than yours. Leaders tend to have an opinion, but never listen to anybody else's opinion. So when a leader shows up, we need to recognize what they look like. And that's what they look like. They're closed-minded, they come with an agenda, they will speak louder than you, and their opinions, from their point of view, has a lot more value than anybody else's opinion. I am definitely seeing leaders show up there. I am definitely seeing that people are representing me without my permission. One of my major concerns is the fact that somebody has written down what we stand for, what it is we're all about. We haven't even been entitled to form our group, to be organized, to even have a place to occupy, get organized, and figure out what the hell we are all about. But for some reason, somebody has given the city a detailed list as to what we're about. And part of on that list, apparently, is Native Americans are not entitled to be a part of the 99%. I had spoken with some very nice officers. They weren't bylaw officers, who were told specifically that the natives are a completely different issue. The natives have absolutely nothing to do with the 99%. I have great issue with that. I want to know who wrote that paper in. I want to know who is standing for this person belongs to the 99%, but this person doesn't. I am more outraged by that one observation, especially because we are now uncovering mass genocide on Native American or Native Canadian children. Mass graves, estimated to be in the millions of children, have been murdered at these schools. It's all being uncovered. So you tell me, on what planet do natives not have the right to be participating in this 99%? Because I'm not belonging to that group. I'm not belonging to that group that shows up in a suit, who has more than enough money and thinks he's got some answers without listening to anybody else's perspective. You know, every one of us are coming to the table with an agenda. Generally, if you're coming to this table and you have money in your pocket to wear a nice fancy suit and you don't listen to anybody, you sort of put a target on your back that it's you. Why are you speaking for me when we haven't even been able to have permission to gather and find out what we're about? I want to know who wrote that list. I want to know who gave that to the town. We need to expose who these leaders are. I have my suspicions. There are some of the most amazing people down there. And I want everybody to know my intention, my agenda, is to end all suffering, which means you need to understand the causes of what makes people suffer, which means there's no way, if you're going to vote in any other election, they have proven for years that they cannot solve social problems. Why? Because they're too busy profiting off causing too many social problems. And we've seen that in the town council meeting, that we don't even get a say, we don't even get a voice. Their reasoning for not to give us the park is because it would set a precedent that should another global movement that says we are tired and fed up with the injustices, that should another global movement show up and want to protest, we may request that land again. And they say, well, every time there's a global protest, we can't just give up the land to every global protest. Should the 99% show up again, then it sets precedent that we're going to have to give them the right to protest again. Make no mistake, every member on the council does not want Occupy Kelowna to take part in this global movement. They do not want anybody to have a voice. They've proven that. They stand for the corporate structure that, you know what, probably doesn't even live in Canada. They are representing a corporate entity that is more global, so none of their profits are staying in Kelowna. So, which is why you're going to see an economic crash happening, because it's sucking out our natural resources and taking it out of town for their own personal pocket. They are not representing the town of Kelowna. They're representing that corporate structure that does not care about destroying Kelowna. Now make note, I am going to be getting a camera, and I am going to tape every friggin' story that I can to show the world the level of torture that people are forced to endure while living in Kelowna. I had a nice little chat with a guy that has post-traumatic stress. If you can't get yourself, wrap your brain around his mindset, you'll never hear his story. But I can. I can see where he's coming from. I can feel where he's coming from. So we had a nice little chat of what he experienced. Yes, the level of torture this man has endured wants his brain to spew everything out, but there's so much torture there that he can only get 3 words from that story, 3 words from that story, 3 words from that story, and nobody's able to quite put the pieces of the puzzle of his story together, because there's so much that he cannot express in a linear fashion. In his brain, it's non-linear. In his brain, it involves so many levels of corruption. Where do you begin? How do you begin to explain it? But there's a way of getting him to tell the story. And that's the biggest thing that he wants. That is what's causing him to be inside a post-traumatic experience, because nobody's listening. Nobody's even taking the time to understand. Nobody's giving him a voice. And some I've seen on there, we don't want that around. It's giving us a bad name. I stand for that. I stand for the story being told. If anything I want, I have an agenda. And my agenda is to have his story heard. How can you solve any problems if you don't understand the problem? You need to understand this guy's story. You need to have him there and not worry about how the public's going to judge him, because the way public judges him in the first place is ignorant. And it supports everything that's wrong. Now we're going to talk about the financial cost to taxpayers. One girl told me of a story that cost, I don't know the figure, but I'll get it down, and I'll get it down on tape. But it cost taxpayers something like over $150,000 to cause a problem that wasn't there. Government is doing everything they can. They're spending money causing problems and profiting off of it, and $0 on the solution. We have non-profits in this area that are all tables supporting everything that's wrong. I'd like to know where these non-profits think in what way their Band-Aid solution is not just allowing problems to grow to the point where we're having a global movement. I'm seeing people talk about we need to focus on electing better leaders. We've been there, done that. We are at the point where you need to wake up to your own insanity, that if you give your power away by even voting for another leader in the structure that it's designed, you're going to be sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting for somebody to solve a problem where they've proven for generations never to even comprehend what a problem is, let alone being able to solve it. Now, I've seen some really nice, caring council people who offered a suggestion to put up camp where there's only a tiny little place where only a few people can stand. That's no suggestion, I'm sorry. When I asked, how big is that land, when you were in that conversation, and you pointed and told me how large that piece of land was, I was in agreement. I thought you were really, really great people, offering some help. Lo and behold, I find out, you could probably put maybe 4 tents there, and nobody walking around, and you can't interrupt the buildings or anything. That was not a suggestion. That was a way for you to suppress us in a very, very small area, thinking that you were very nice, offering us a way to control us so we couldn't grow. The homeless aren't even entitled to a blanket at night. It's too friggin' cold for me to be out there. I'm willing to live homeless and feel the pain every homeless person feels until we bring change. I want tents so at least we can raise the level of humanity during this protest and allow homeless at least tent and heat while this movement is taking part. So, there's my opinion. I have talked with the most amazing people in this protest. I've made a video before. Yesterday, my experience with this protest. The conversations were outstanding. We have the solutions to every problem we are dealing with because these people are highly intelligent. But are we intelligent enough to know that there's leaders there? Are we intelligent enough to know who shows up in a nice, expensive suit that doesn't allow you to have a voice? That you're going to sit there and listen to what he's got to say, and then he's getting the impression that, oh, everybody's listening to me. You give a leader 2 seconds worth of energy, you let him speak for even a second, you've lost your power. After you know that he's there with an agenda and his agenda does not include you. So, the group needs to get together. You need to decide where you want to go with this. Because there's some really, really awesome people that I want to participate with. But there's some really, really people that are trying to control this, suppress this, and make sure the pattern is repeated again. And if that's what about, there's so much greed in Kelowna, they won't even allow us a voice. They do not feel natives, after suffering from genocide, are not included in this protest. Who's representing this group? I'd like to start a new group, and it doesn't include the 1%. because the 1% seem to be heavily involved in this protest in Kelowna.